Hi guys, my name's Joe Green and today we're going to be reviewing this delightful little book. So if you have heard about Roald Dahl, he's a really famous British author, and I had never heard of this book. I had a little book collection that I've had on my side table probably since I was a child. Never read any of these books, and I'm starting to get into this kind of stuff, so I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot. Now, stick around to the end of this video where I'll give you a rating of this book. And honestly, it's one of the first, well, I suppose it is a non-fiction book. It's not a fiction book. So all of the Roald Dahl stories that I have heard of before were all essentially made up. So, fiction stories. Whereas this one, it's kind of like a little, almost like an autobiography in a way. It's about stories from his childhood, and there are a couple of chapters that I think are really, really interesting, just in terms of, from the perspective of human, understanding of our past and that kind of stuff. One of the things that Roald Dahl said that was really intriguing to me was that he was writing this book in 1974, I think. And his dad passed away when he was young. And he said something that it almost sounds too crazy to be true. That in 1974, when he was writing this book, if his granddad would have been alive at the time, his granddad would have been like 160, I think. And he basically said that his granddad was born in 1820. And that's only like two generations spanning from 1820 to 1970 something, which blew my mind. One of the other things that I really loved about this book is how he was writing this as an older person, remembering stories from childhood. And he essentially says at the start of the book that he didn't have to remember any of these stories. They were just so fresh in his mind that he merely needed to take them out and put them onto paper. And it's just so interesting. And it makes me actually quite nostalgic and almost emotional a little bit, because it makes me wonder some of the things that were so normal when he was growing up and now would now be ridiculous. So for instance, taking a boat from the UK to Norway, which is where his parents were from. That would be pretty unique. Now you probably just get a plane there. And talking about his Norwegian heritage, talking about his family, talking about going to private school, talking about getting the cane. And it's just a really magical little book. Honestly, I would recommend reading this to anybody, really, not just, children. And if it was children, then children would, I think, be blown away because of everything that people have access to now compared to everything that they didn't have access to then. One of the stories that he says that blew me away a little bit was the story about when he got his first car. Or not his first car, when his family got their first car, and they all piled into the car, and the big sister had a 1 hour lesson and then was basically set to go. They went off down the road going about 35 miles an hour, didn't know how to turn a corner, went into a bush, and Roald Dahl essentially, everyone got thrown out of the car but was okay apart from Roald Dahl, who almost had his nose sliced off by the window. And then, because hospitals and medicine were so different back then, instead of anything, calling an ambulance, they had to get back into the car. They had to go drive this car that they didn't know how to drive back to the centre of town, essentially tell the doctor, then go back home while holding this guy, Roald Dahl's nose in place. I can only imagine. And then when the doctor finally gets to their house, he basically stitches it on. And that's kind of normal, really, compared to today's medical kind of landscape. But honestly, it was absolutely eye-opening. And then to think of his childhood before any of the world wars, or, well, I suppose before the Second World War, which he was involved in. I'm actually, since reading this book, I'm really interested to know more about his life because it just sounds so super interesting. I'll try and find a couple of other chapters that I really enjoyed. Writing letters is something that I think is really beautiful, and it helped him look back. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm journaling quite a lot. Most days I'll write at least something in a journal. And I really like the idea of so I'm 30, 50. If I can have 50 years, that'd be amazing. In 50 years when I'm like 82, if I can look back on these diaries that I've written and get an understanding of the mindset of who I am. So I suppose that's something for me to keep in mind while I'm writing these diaries. And it breaks it down. So, when he was age 9, it was 1925. When he was age 7, it was 1923. And then when he was 20, it was 1936. And that's essentially when he was at a private school and then at the Shell Company. Now, one of the really cool things that he starts to talk about in this book, towards the end, the thing that I really like about it, is he starts to talk about how he wanted to explore and he wanted to go out. And then he talks about, a bit earlier in this book, how quite a lot of the experience that he had as a child led to probably him writing the second book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, probably led to, a couple of the stories that he came up with. And I just think that's really fantastic because it means that maybe all of us have stories inside of us that maybe one day we'll get out. So honestly, truly, just lovely, lovely book. And like I say, one of the things that I really like personally from this book is at the end of it, he talks about wanting to go to far away places and explore things and see things that he's never seen before. And that resonates a lot with me because I'm about to go traveling to China for the first time. Never been to Asia, never been to China, and I'm about to go and do that. 我去上海，我要去上海, which is Chinese for I want to go to Shanghai. So yeah, I can't wait. And this book, I just have such a lovely feeling when I read this book. Apparently, that's a picture of him and his granddaughter, but yeah, it's hard to rate this one because I have such a love. It's not what I normally read. It's not a business. It's not useful. It's not hustler. It's not, how to get better. It's not self-improvement. It's just a lovely, romantic look back at the past. And I'm just going to rate it how I feel. 8.5. 8.5. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful book. And if you would like to read this book, I'd highly recommend it. Download it, get it. It's one of the first ones that I've read. I'm trying to get better at reading it. It's also got little pictures of his childhood. So that's Norway. Little drawings. Drawings of like a rat that he put into a sweet jar. Little pictures that are just really beautiful. So honestly, this book, and that's a picture of Norway in, I don't know, must be, how do I get it to focus? I don't know. Norway. That's him getting the cane. So yeah, no, honestly, I would recommend this book, Roald Dahl, Boy, Tales of Childhood. Beautiful. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you want to hit that subscribe button, we'll be doing more of these kind of conversations. If you've read that book, I'd love to know what you think about it. And yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and if you want to hit that subscribe button, bash! We're going to be hitting 1,000 subscribers today. I'm very excited. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in a bit.